This is the average strand of DNA, deoxyribonucleic acid. And next to it, you have a strand of RNA, ribonucleic acid. The structure of DNA is made up of multiple parts, such as the deoxyribose, which is sugars, the phosphate group, and the nitrogenous bases, which are put together with hydrogen bonds. The nitrogenous bases are made up of the 8 listed on either side: cytosine, guanine, adenine, thymine, cytosine, guanine, adenine, and uracil from RNA. Wait. I did not say you're allowed to do that.
Yeah, look what he did. Look what he did.
Hi, friend. This is me, and next to me is a strand of DNA. DNA is the structural foundation in any living being. It makes my hair black, my eyes brown, and me awesome. DNA is the reason that I'm alive and the reason that I'm still living. You should appreciate it. I know I do. This is the beginning of the cell cycle. In the beginning, the cell starts off small, then it grows. At this point here, the cell decides whether or not to continue. And here, this is the beginning of the cell cycle in the phase known as G1. In this phase, the cell begins to grow and also determines whether or not it will continue into the adulthood of the cell. In the S phase, the replication of DNA occurs. The DNA replicates so that when the cell splits, it will have 2 separate sets of DNA in order to carry out its basic functions. In phase G2, the cell prepares to divide. It pulls the DNA apart and begins splitting, and also the nucleus dissolves. In the final phase of cell division, known as mitosis, the cell splits, forming 2 different cells. Here we have an example of a strand of DNA being split by the heliocase, this blue arrow here. And then the 2 separate strands being woven into 2 new strands of DNA by the DNA polymerase. The leftover parts are called free nucleotides, and these parts here are called the chromosomes. The different parts of the DNA are adenine, thymine, cytosine, and guanine. And that is DNA being cut in half to form the new separate strands of DNA in the new cells. If you didn't know it, now you know.
Because he wasn't sitting there. He wasn't sitting there.
This is an example of... Court, please stop. This is DNA. Here is the RNA being transcribed from the DNA inside of the nucleus. Out here in the cytoplasm, the RNA is then copied. Then, with codons, the DNA is copied down into amino acids. The amino acids are then stranded into proteins. And that is the DNA replication and transcription and translation. Proteins and mutations. There are 2 types of mutations: chromosomal mutations and gene mutations. Here we will be talking about gene mutations, the changes to the bases of DNA in one gene. See, genes and DNA are the reason we look like what we look like. I could look like me here, or I could look like Yoda. But I'm glad I don't. Your genes are passed on to you by your mother and father. Now, the luck you have with the genes you get depends. You could be affected, you could be a carrier, Or you could just be unaffected completely. It all depends on the genes carried in the sperm cells from your father and the egg from your mother. And that is mutations.